All right, my friends, welcome to another video lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be discussing how to perform a final audio mix on our interview piece here. So the first thing I want to do is set up my timeline so that the audio is easier to see and work with here. So I'm going to bring my center line up here to expose mainly just my audio. And then I'm going to expand my audio tracks, all of them at the same time, by holding down Option and hitting the plus key, thereby expanding them. And you'll notice I have, in addition to labeling my music tracks, I've also labeled the dialogue track here with DX1, the abbreviation for dialogue. So I'd like you all to do the same thing. Now, in order to perform the mix, I'm going to do this in two separate steps. First, I'm going to go through and mix the dialogue all by itself and do any cleanup that may need to be performed. So in order to do that, I'm going to solo my dialogue track and then zoom in just a little bit here and start playing through my dialogue, watching my meters. Again, I'm looking for that -12 range. With dialogue, it's a little more acceptable to go a little bit further over -12 rather than under. So you want to keep it at least at -12 and then possibly peak over a little bit, maybe -10, -9, something like that. You want to stay away from the -6 range. So I'm just going to start playing and listening and watching my meters here.
My first experience of dancing was at a high school pep rally. I saw someone do a backflip and I'm like, I thought that had to be done with wires.
So this is all pretty good, except for the very first part of the statement here where he says,
My first
experience. That's a little low, so I'm going to keyframe that to raise it up a bit. So I'm going to grab my pen tool here and just apply a couple of keyframes here. One at the next part of the statement where I want the level to be normal, and then one here to raise just that part of the statement. And I'm going to hit my right bracket key a couple of times and raise that up a couple dB.
My first experience of
I'll go a little bit higher even.
My first experience of dancing was at a high school pep.
That's pretty good. I might go one more on it.
My first experience of dancing
That's
was
good.
at a
Especially since the music is still ramping down in that part. We really want to be able to hear that part of the statement. Now, the other thing I'm going to do right here is apply an audio transition. Just like at music edit points and the boundaries of all of your other audio clips, it is also important to do the same with the dialogue. So I'm going to select the clip boundary here, Shift D to apply, and I'm going to double click, and I'm going to bring this all the way down to 1 frame, just to make sure I don't get a click out of this.
My first experience of dancing was at a high school pep rally. I saw someone do a backflip and I'm like, I thought that had to be done with wires in Hollywood. And realizing that it could be done by a high school student, I wanted to get into it.
The rest of that is really good in terms of level. So I'm just going to put an audio transition on the end here, pull this down and play through that. Make sure it's okay.
I wanted to get into it.
Nice. All right, so let's head to the next soundbite here and continue on.
The cool thing about dance is dance brings everyone together.
Okay, so when he says dance,
The cool thing about dance is
it spikes up pretty high. It's -8 or so. So I'm going to drop this down just a little bit by doing a little keyframe triangle here. One in the word, one right before and one after. Pull this down just slightly, maybe 3 or 4 dB.
The cool thing about dance is,
and that controls that much better. You can see the level is now much more even through the statement.
the cool thing about dance is dance brings everyone together.
Okay, so then let's do the same thing here with our boundary transition. Bring that down to 1 frame.
The cool thing about dance is dance brings everyone together of all cultures. Everyone relating to each other, wanting to just get into everyone relating to each other.
Yeah, the everyone's pretty hot right there. So I'm going to bring that down just a little bit as well. left bracket a couple times.
Everyone relating to each other, wanting to just get into the dance, and that's what got me hooked in.
All right, so this part of the statement right here is kind of low.
Everyone relating to each other, wanting to just get into the dance.
Yeah, it's a little bit low there. So I'm going to bring that up. As it ramps down here, I'm going to fight that with a couple of keyframes. Raise up this part by a couple. Play through.
Everyone relating to each other, wanting to just get into the dance, and that's what got me hooked in.
That's better. All right. So now let's transition this boundary. Bring that down. Play through, making sure it's good.
Hooked in.
Good. All right, next. Start out with our boundary transition and see what we got here.
There have been times where I felt like quitting dancing with anything I'm.
That was a little low, the entire thing. So I'm going to select the whole clip and hit G for gain and raise it by 2 dB.
There have been times where I felt like quitting dancing with anything I'm working at. I feel like there are moments of.
Okay, so with anything is a little low as well. I'm going to raise that by 2. You don't always have to keyframe. You can also do gain, especially if the statement itself is relatively even and just needs to be raised overall.
Anything I'm working at, I feel like there are moments of plateauing, and that plateau is rough, where nothing is improving and it feels hopeless. I had to just drive through the plateau. I had to repeat until I could break through it.
Okay, so this is kind of complex. This range here is low, then we have a spike, then we have another low area, then an area that's relatively good, and then a sort of low trail off at the end here. So this is going to require some keyframing. So I'm going to raise the first part of it here by a couple.
I feel like there are moments of plateauing,
That's
and
good.
that plateau is rough, where nothing is improving and it feels hopeless.
And then we're a little low there, so I'm going to raise this part as well.
Improving and it feels hopeless. I had to just drive through the plateau.
And now that's a little too hot, so I'm going to drop that back down here. Maybe down by 3.
I had to just drive through the plateau.
I'll raise it back up by 1.
I had to just drive through the plateau. I had to repeat until I could break through it.
And then it gets really weak at the end, so I'm going to raise this part up again by 3.
I had to repeat until I could break through it.
And then the very end part where he says break through it, I'm going to raise that by a couple more.
Until I could break through it.
There, that's better. And then now we'll put on our boundary transition. Pull this down and maybe trim this in just a little bit.
I could break through it.
Good. Very good. All right, next.
So why I still
We have a breath and a so before he says why.
dance, it is.
Yeah, we want to get rid of that. So I'm going to trim that off and put on my boundary transition here. Pull that back down. Let's hear how that sounds now.
Why I still dance.
Okay, so there's a little bit of before the Y, so I'm going to trim this in just a couple more, pull this back a little bit.
Why I still
There, that's better.
Why I still dance, it is an escape for me. If work is a little bit rough, is home life stressful, I just want to take an hour out of the day and just release all that energy inside of me on the dance floor.
So I think the entire thing needs to be raised, and then the points that are high need to be mitigated with some keyframes here. So I'm going to raise everything by 3 and see how the middle part sounds here.
It is an escape for me. If work is a little bit rough,
I might go a little higher on this, a couple more.
It is an escape for me. If work is a little bit rough, home life stressful.
Okay, so stressful's hot right there, so I will bring that down with another one of our little keyframe triangles here. See how that works?
Stressful. Life, stressful.
Yeah, that's way better. And then let's hear how this sounds.
Take an hour out of the day and just release all that energy inside.
Okay, so that both of those are a little bit hot, so I will bring them down by a couple.
Just want to take an hour out of the day and just release all that energy inside of me on the dance floor.
Okay, so on the dance floor, inside of me on the dance floor, trails down. You can see just a little mountainside right here trailing off. So I'm going to raise this up so we can hear him say on the dance floor.
Energy inside of me on the dance floor.
Yeah, maybe a little bit higher.
Energy inside of me on the dance floor.
Yeah, that's good. And then I'm going to bring this ramp a little bit out further so it's not so sudden.
Energy inside of me on the dance floor.
That's good. All right, so we'll get the boundary transition on here. Trim that back.
The dance floor.
That's good. Now at the beginning, we've got quite a spike there. Let's check this out.
Why I still dance.
Why? Okay, well, let's bring this down a lot. That's 5 right there.
Why I still dance. It is an.
Yeah, that's way better. And then I'm going to bring this keyframe out just a little bit.
Why I still dance. It is an escape for me.
That's way better. Okay, so you can see how complicated the keyframing can get here to get our subject's speech even in terms of level. All right, we're almost done.
What I learned from dancing is.
So there's a little bit of something he says right before what I learned from dancing left in here that I want to get rid of.
What I learned from dancing.
What is that? Let's trim this out and hear it.
What I learned.
Okay. I don't want the in there. So I'm going to zoom in even further here. And this is the end of the right here. There's this little lump right here. So I'm going to trim that over and play it.
What I learned from.
What I learned. Okay. So now I'm going to get my boundary transition on there. Bring that all the way down to 1 frame.
What I learned from dancing.
Oh, nice and clean. That what is beautiful now. All right.
What I learned from dancing is it is a catalyst to my creativity.
Okay, so he says, what I learned from dancing is, and then he takes a big breath. Okay, we want to get rid of that. I'm going to trim that over and put another boundary transition on that, and then put one on here. Yes, there are a lot of transitions you use in audio mixing. All right, so let's listen to that.
Dancing is, it is a catalyst.
Yeah, we don't hear that breath anymore. That's nice. Much cleaner.
To my creativity.
Okay, so let's listen to the level here.
It is a catalyst to my creativity. I could pull ideas into it. I could take ideas out of it and express it with everything else that I'm interested in.
All right, so I'm going to raise the overall level on this one just by a bit, by 2.
It is a catalyst to my creativity. I could pull ideas into it.
Nice. And then it trails off at the end here. This is a common speech pattern for people, especially when they're being interviewed. They start out stronger in the statement and then kind of trail off towards the end.
I'm interested in.
So I'm going to trim this back because we don't need all of that excess in there. And put on our boundary transition. And then let's do some keyframing here on that trail off statement. Bring that up by 3 or 4.
Everything else that I'm interested in.
That I'm interested in. I'm going to bring this over a little bit here so we don't have such a sudden rise.
With everything else that I'm interested in.
Nice. Okay, that's way better. All right. Couple more statements left here.
So I have a little catchphrase that I close out all my social media content with.
Okay, so I have is very strong. So I'm going to lower that a bit. Let's try 3.
So I have
let's go back up by 1.
So I have a little catchphrase that I close out all my social media content with. It's keep being awesome.
Okay, so let's take the entire thing and raise it up by 2 here.
So I have
and then drop that part down a little bit more.
So I have a little catchphrase that I close out all my social media content with. It's keep being awesome. Telling people,
All right, so let's bring up the end part just a little bit here.
it's keep being awesome. Telling people, hey, just keep being awesome. That implies that they're already awesome.
All right, so let's raise this entire thing by 3.
Telling people, hey, just keep being awesome. That implies that they're already awesome. That implies that
That's pretty strong. Maybe we bring that down just slightly here.
that implies that they're already awesome. They're just gonna keep doing what they're doing.
All right, again, we're going to trim the tail off here. We don't need that much of the room noise in there. And boundary transition. And then let's listen to the end here because it kind of ramps
Keep
down.
doing what they're doing.
Yep, keep doing what they're doing is kind of weak. So we're going to raise that up. Try 3dB.
They're just gonna keep doing what they're doing.
Much better. Much, much better. Okay. And last statement. Keep being awesome. Peace.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
Okay, so that's super low. So I'm going to select the whole thing and raise the gain by, let's try 6 on that.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
We still need more. Let's try a couple more on that.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
Cool. All right, so we'll raise just peace now by a couple.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
Cool. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, we've done the gain adjustment and all of the keyframing for the dialogue here. Now it's time to see how it plays with the music, if they get along together. So I'm going to take off the solo and listen to everything together.
My first experience of dancing was at a high school pep rally. I saw someone do a backflip, and I'm like, I thought that had to be done with wires in
Pretty good now. You can hear the relationship between the dialogue and the music. The music is allowing the dialogue to be heard here using this keyframe dip that's going on here. Let's solo the music and see what the level is on that. It's around -24, -26. And with the dialogue at -12 or slightly above, that's a really good relationship. And you can hear they sound good together.
that it could be done by a high school student. I wanted to get into it. The cool thing about dance is dance brings everyone together of all cultures. Everyone relating to each other, wanting to just get into the dance. And that's what got me hooked in.
So far, I'm really happy with this. The troughs that I have here, where I'm dipping down my music, are working very well with the level of the dialogue that I've established in my dialogue-only pass. I'm just listening for areas where they're competing. I want to make sure that the music isn't overriding the dialogue at all, or the dialogue is so loud that the music gets lost.
There have been times where I felt like quitting dancing. With anything I'm working at, I feel like there are moments of plateauing, and that plateau is rough.
Okay, so the music is a little more complex in this region. I think I'm actually going to drop this part down just slightly so that the dialogue has a little more room to be heard. So I'm going to select both of these keyframes. I clicked on the first one, and now I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the second one. And then I'm going to use my left bracket and drop it down by 2, and then play through again.
I'm working at, I feel like there are moments of plateauing, and that plateau is rough, where
Much better. I think that's what it needed. Just a little bit of an edge.
nothing is improving, and it feels hopeless. I had to just drive through the plateau. I had to repeat until I could break through it.
Yeah, just dropping it a couple there really gave the dialogue just a little boost that it needed. Let's head into the next one here.
Why I still dance, it is an escape for me. If work is a little bit rough, is home life stressful,
I'm feeling the same thing with this one right here. I'm going to do the same exact thing. we've got some more complex things happening in the music now, so that regular -24 doesn't quite work. So I'm going to drop down this section by 3, play through.
Why I still dance, it is an escape for me. If work is a little bit rough, is home life stressful.
Yeah, that allows the dialogue to just sit that much more on top of the music, and it's much more easily heard that way. They're not competing with each other.
I just want to take an hour out of the day and just release all that energy inside of me on the dance floor. What I learned from dancing is it is a catalyst to my creativity. I can pull ideas into it, I can take ideas out of it and express it with everything else that I'm interested in.
Now, I didn't have to drop that section down because the music is not as complex in this area. So it's easier for the dialogue to sit on top of it. Let's head to the next section.
So I have a little catchphrase that I close out all my social media content with. It's keep being awesome. Telling people, hey, just keep being awesome. That implies that they're already awesome. They're just gonna keep doing what they're doing.
Nice, that worked very well. Let's head into the final statement here, and here we got.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
Very nice. The relationship between the ramp up and the last statement, I think, totally works. So now that we've completed this final mix, we've got balanced music and dialogue. Most of the work that we had to do was on the dialogue track by using gain to raise entire clips and then keyframes to raise and lower smaller sections within them based on the level of what our interview subject was saying at the time. And what we've done is provided a much better relationship between the dialogue and the music, in which the dialogue is heard very clearly and is not overrun by the music in any way. The music gets out of the way, allows that dialogue all the space that it needs, and then returns as the interview subject is finishing his statement. It's very, very important that the ramping happen as the interview subject is beginning the statement and ending the statement. You always want to cross those boundaries with these ramps instead of them happening before. Let's do an example here where I'm going to bring this down before the interview subject begins speaking. And it sounds weird. It sounds like the music just gets out of the way prematurely and then the subject begins to speak.
The cool thing about dance is
It sounds funky. It sounds edited. That's the problem. We don't want it to sound fake and forced and edited. We want it to sound natural and unnoticeable. So that's why having these ramps span those boundaries works so much better.
The cool thing about dance is dance brings everyone together.
That way you don't really notice it's happening. Again, editing, the invisible art. So there you have it. Our final audio mix for the interview project. So before I go here, I want to check my music track one more time to make sure I don't have any naked boundaries here. And here's one. Pull this down to 1 frame. Okay, and then head to the next edit point here. That's covered. That's covered. Let's see if this one is. Yep. And then let's head to the end here. It looks like that's naked. So I'm going to put a nice long crossfade on this one. So we have a nice smooth fade at the end. All right, great. So there you have it, my friends. That is our final audio mix on our interview piece. So I'd like you guys all to go through your timelines and utilize the techniques I've shown you here to achieve a nice, even, balanced mix where the dialogue is easily heard and does not compete with the music. Make sure those music ramps span the beginnings and endings of those sound bites, and that you have absolutely no naked audio boundaries, with everything being addressed by a boundary transition. Simple little crossfade. All right, my friends, that about does it for this video lesson. I'll see you again in the next one.